Hello everybody and welcome to today's Destiny video. So today I'm going to be covering class setups. Now this is something that I got asked for a very long time ago, but I've only just kind of got around to actually doing it, and to be honest I kind of forgot to do it. So we're going to cover Hunter today. So we're going to go through the Blade Dancer class and the Gunslinger class. Just bear in mind, this is all my opinion and these are just things that I like to run on the classes. So if you don't think they're MLG approved, then that's your choice, but I like playing my classes like this. Now other classes like the Titan and the Warlock I will get to in another video, but they will be a lot less varied, purely because I don't have as much gear as I do on my Hunter. So let's get started. So for PvE specifically, this is what I usually run as my Gunslinger. I usually run the Nighthawk. I sometimes, really rarely, I'll switch out my Gunslinger class for Bones of AO instead of a Celestial Nighthawk. But this is usually the armor I run, so I usually run around 86% intellect. I like having a lot of intellect. I like using discipline as well, and I like strength and discipline to be the same. I like to use my throwing knives quite a lot in PvE, like a lot. I use them almost all the time. So that's obviously a personal preference thing. If you don't use your melee much, then I would suggest just zeroing out strength and just going 100 for discipline and intellect. That's what I usually do in PvP. So on the actual class itself, I like to run incendiary grenades just to feel I've got more versatility with them. I like using triple jump because you can get to way better places with triple jump. I use combustion because of groups of enemies. You get more groups of enemies in PvE than you do in PvP. However, I use it in both anyway, just because gunfight is reasonably pointless when I've got so much intellect. Knife juggler is really good for PvE specifically, purely because all the really low tier enemies you can just chain throwing knife kills and just get loads of precision shots, which is really fun. And I use, let's just talk about my actual stats now. I actually run reasonably even stats between armor, recovery and agility. I like to run a little bit more agility in PvE just because I like being a little bit faster than normal. I like speeding through activities and missions and things. But yeah, with Gunslinger's Trance, obviously I want Gunslinger's Trance and Chain of Woe for that even more synergy. I like getting the precision kills, stacks 3 times, you get more precision and you get more reload speed. So if I wasn't using that, I'd probably use Scavenger and Gambler's Dagger, but usually I don't really need Gambler's Dagger when I'm using Knife Juggler because I've got enough knives. And with Juggler, I've usually got enough ammo, and you can just do the heavy ammo glitch, so there's not really much choice of using that either. And obviously, Keyhole is alright, but I'm using Celestial Nighthawk, so I don't really need it. In this video, I'm not going to go over the guns I'm using, but I will just have in the side what guns I actually would use with this class typically. So just watch out for those. I won't actually go over them though. Okay, so when I actually run Blade Dancer in PvE, I like to be invisible. The main reason I hardly ever use Blade Dancer, but when I do, it's usually as a medic utility class. Obviously we haven't got the new subclass yet, so I like to have a utility class, and being invisible and going to revive people is pretty much the only reason I use this class. If I'm by myself, I might use invisibility sometimes just to rush through missions if I just can't be bothered to fight things. But usually I'll just fight them anyway because I find Celestial Nighthawk to be really fun to use. But with this class, I usually have the same, round about the same stats here. I don't need as much strength because I don't use my melee as much because it's not as ranged. So compared to the other two, I usually have a little less strength. But with discipline, I like to have quite a lot of discipline because of the arc bolt grenades are so good in PvE, especially with arc burn. And obviously the intellect is good, 78% is nice. Because of the super, I like to have a lot of invisibility. The more invisibility, the better. And obviously I use Vanish with my super. So let's have a look at that right now. So I use arc bolt grenades, as I just said. The chaining feature is really good. The other two grenades aren't that good. They're a little bit better in PvP, but even then I still use arc bolt grenade because of chaining. But these ones are really more PvP focused, even though they're not as good as arc bolt still. I like to use better control in PvE. Just because I don't like blinking. For some reason I don't like blinking in PvE. I never have. It's been a weird thing. I just don't like blinking in PvE. I don't really have a reason for it. And I also don't like having the higher jump because I like having that little extra recovery, and I like having a little bit more control. It's noticeable to me, but I understand if you don't really notice the difference and just go for high jump or blink anyway. With the actual super, I like to have Vanish because the only reason I'd be really using this class in PvE, is for invisibility. So Vanish is pretty much the only thing there for me. If it's an arc burn week, then I might be using Razor's Edge, but even then I'll still probably use Vanish just for like medic purposes. And then I've got Escape Artist again, because I want to turn invisible. If I wasn't using that, I'd use Fast Twitch, but I've got enough discipline to not need Fast Twitch. But yeah, it's fine with Escape Artist. Now, because I'm a medic and I want to be getting places fast, and I don't want my invisibility to run out before I get there, I like to have a reasonably high agility build here, and my armor is pretty low because I'm so defensive with the invisibility that I don't really need high armor. So this is pretty much the class I go for PvE, and then followed by Shadow Jack to increase the duration of invisibility effects. So basically this whole thing is all based on invisibility, as you can see. So that's that bit. Now the armor itself, I like to use Don't Touch Me's because, again, invisibility. This is for hand cannons and special weapons, so that covers shotguns and my Fatebringer, which is awesome, and obviously heavy weapons covers my Gjallarhorn, and my helmet has isn't the best of helmets in the world. I could probably use this one instead. I just don't like the design as much. Sometimes I just go for cosmetic anyway, just because it just looks better, but technically this one would be a better helmet just because of it increased melee speed, but I'll just keep this on just because it looks better. Okay, so PvP is a completely different beast. Now, I am going to show you a few different class setups for this. Actually, I'm going to show you one for Iron Banner or just big games in general, just 6v6. Then I'll show you 3v3, which is usually trials or skirmish. And then I'll show you Rumble. Probably Rumble will be a little bit brief, but the other two will be a little bit more in depth. So let's get on with this. So when I'm playing 6v6, I usually use this exotic, the Aclophage Symbiote. The 4 shots are really good. Now, obviously you don't get your super as much as you would like to actually use this exotic, but at the moment, Hunter exotics, or at least Gunslinger exotics, are reasonably terrible in this kind of format. So this is what I usually use. I like to have fast melee speed as well on my arms. I have hand cannon special weapons again on my chest. This is a different chest. This is the strength one. This is the intellect one. And I like to have these boots because of heavy weapon ammo. So we actually have 98%, which isn't the best, but it's still pretty good. 267 is really good. I'm really happy with that stat roll. I don't need any strength for this because I hardly ever use my throwing knife, and I do have 2 throwing knives, which we'll get onto now. So I usually use trip mine grenades because they just seem to get me way more kills than incendiary grenades do. Incendiary grenades are really good, but for like 6v6 games like Control and stuff, trip mine grenades are so fun when you can get them into a nice tight spot with a lot of people. Then you can get some nice little multi-kills with them. I use triple jump because of control. I like having 3 jumps. I like to be able to control where I'm going. Better control is okay, but if you're using a gunslinger, then you should probably be using triple jump. I like to use combustion again with the gunslinger on PvP, purely because I've got quite a few kills with combustion from my supers, so I've always kept that on. Gunfighter is okay, but when you've got really good intellect, you do not need it. So combustion is the way forward. I use incendiary blades just because I like to get that extra damage. If you've even like shot them once and thrown an incendiary blade at them, they're dead because the burn will kill them. So that's why I use that. Knife juggle is okay, but you're not really going to be using your knife that much. It's really just an emergency throwing knife, which you're not going to be using that much, so that's why I put it in this slot. Next, let's have a look at the stats. So I like to run high armor on this class, purely because I like to be able to dodge other people's trip mines. If you've got really high armor on your class, you're not going to get killed by a trip mine. You'll basically be killed because you'll have like no health left, and one shot will kill you, one stray bullet will kill you. But it's better than getting those deaths. Now, I've survived way too many trip mine grenades to like change this up. I really like the way I've got this set out. I like having a little bit of agility and still having a little bit of recovery, and obviously it's just helpful to have that armor when you're trying to go up against like lower damage weapons like assault rifles as well as pulse rifles. Now onto this middle row here, the keyhole is actually really good. If you've got a corridor full of people, especially in 6v6, you're going to get at least 2 of them if they're all clustered together, and then the combustion will just finish them off. Scavenger is actually okay for this perk, but I just don't think Gunslinger's Trance is worth it in this situation, just because to make it worth it you've got to stack it 3 times, and it's just, I just don't think it's worth it, especially when I always use hand cannons and high stability pulse rifles, which this is just pointless for that. Last but not least, I used Gambler's Dagger, which gives me 2 throwing knives. So obviously I'm not using Knife Juggler, so I like to have 2 Gambler's Daggers instead, which works just as well. Okay then, Blade Dancer time. So I like to run 100 on here just because it's beautiful. I use my Lucky Raspberry, which is just really good. Now, Mask of the Third Man is okay, but it's actually been proven that the difference of the perks it gives you is just absolutely minuscule. So it's just not worth using in my eyes, especially when Lucky Raspberry is amazing, especially for 6v6. So that's what I use for this. So my helmet gives me increased melee attack speed, which I always like to have on a PvP class, so I always try and get it. If I can't, then it's not a big deal, but it's always nice to have, especially on Blade Dancer when their melee is up close. You want to get those melee hits in quick. So let's have a look at the actual subclass. So I use Arc Bolt Grenade just because I like to chain, and it's really good for that. It's really good for that, especially if you're playing something like Trials. Oh my god, it's so good. I use Blink because I'm using a shotgun, and I don't care if that's OP. It's a tool at my disposal, why would I not use it? But sometimes I do switch it up and use my sniper, but usually I will only be using my Blade Dancer in retaliation to being Blink shotgunned myself. So this is just my retaliation class really. I use Razor's Edge because it's beautiful. I use Fast Twitch because you can just melee endlessly, pretty much a couple of seconds after every melee you'll certainly have your next one. I use a reasonably high agility / armor build for this one just because you can with a Blade Dancer. The Blade Dancer's agility is just higher than the Gunslinger's anyway, just because of some of the passive perks you can get. If you use Fleet-footed, you actually get a little bit more agility, so that's why I use Fleet-footed. But I also use Fleet-footed purely for my shotgun as well, and when I want to slide around, it's really good for that. And then last but not least, Hungering Blade, just for getting my health back whenever I kill someone with my Hungering Blade, which is awesome. It means that you can pretty much not be killed if you use it properly. So let's move on to Trials. Okay, so when I play my Gunslinger in Trials, which is pretty much all I play unless I'm retaliating to a really good team, I will usually right, so my actual class setup is exactly the same, so I'm not going to go over that. But my actual armor is a little bit different. So as you noticed, I've got some strength there. If you don't play a Hunter usually, then you don't know why I've got this, but if you do play Hunter, then you know straight away that I'm using Crest of Alpha Lupi, which has strength, which really sucks because I do not want strength on this class at all. It's really inefficient for me to have any strength on it, but I haven't really got a choice. I really like using Crest of Alpha Lupi. You can literally sprint through bodies and revive them at the same time, which is invaluable to me. Whenever I'm playing Trials, there's no reason not to use this chest. When I'm playing Skirmish, I like to use this chest as well. I will usually switch it up though. I usually change between having this chest or having Actiphage Symbiote. Even though it's 3v3, it's still useful. If you miss a shot, then you can always follow it up. And obviously with self-revives, it's really helpful as well. But yeah, when I'm using Crest of Alpha Lupi, I'm still fine with my free shots, I'll just be more careful. So obviously I've got my increased melee attack speed on my helmet, so that's awesome. So this is basically the class I use for Trials all the time. I'm going to swap over to Blade Dancer now, but just so you know, I like 99% of the time use this class. I don't really like using my Blade Dancer at all, so unless I'm in like a very dire situation. So let's move over to my Blade Dancer. Okay, so this is my Blade Dancer class. So if you haven't already noticed, this is my Go Hard class, this is my Get Sweaty class, this is my Try Hard class. This is the class I use for when we are losing a lot, and this is a last resort. Now that's not to say that I think this is overpowered, I just think when you're in the middle of a trials match or just a 3v3 in general and you're losing a lot, you just want to switch up your game type completely. You think in your head, oh, it's because I'm not rushing, I'm sniping. So if I'm ever using a shotgun, I always feel that it's absolutely stupid if I'm using a shotgun and I'm on my gunslinger. Whenever I use a shotgun in PvP, I usually automatically just switch to my Blade Dancer, just because it's just way more shotgun orientated with blink and agility builds. So I just feel like it's a better class for a shotgun. In fact, I think it's a perfect class for a shotgun, unless you're a Sunsinger. I think Sunsinger Warlocks are really good with shotguns as well because of their melee. But yeah, this is almost identical to my 6v6 Blade Dancer class without the weapons, so the weapons are a little bit different. And last but not least, this is what I would use for Rumble on a regular basis. This is if I'm wanting to win Rumble, I will use this class, and obviously if I'm in the mood, if I want to swap to a sniper, then I'll just use my regular 6v6 Gunslinger class. But this is what I usually use for my Rumble matches, just because I just feel like shotgun's really good, and obviously, in fact, I'd change to that. I'll actually probably use that instead. So yeah, this is what I use for Rumble. I changed out Thorn purely because Thorn is more of a precision shooter, Last Word is more of a panic shooter, and when you're in Rumble, you're against random people all over the place, the spawns are all messed up, so you want to be on the fly and be ready for anything, and that's also why I like to use Knucklehead Radar. I don't usually use Knucklehead Radar, I would actually call anybody using it an idiot. However, in Rumble, it's really, really good, because people can spawn literally on you and you won't know about it if you're aiming down sights. So that's why I use that. So if you've enjoyed this video, guys, I'm sorry if it went on for quite a while. I'm looking at the actual recording and I've been recording for about half an hour. So I don't know if there's like a lot of cuts or something, but this might be quite a long video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then please leave a like below and subscribe to my channel. Also, I've got loads of social stuff in the description, like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. I'd really appreciate it if you went down and liked, followed, all those things down there as well. But obviously you don't have to, I'm not forcing you, I'm not going to just stop making videos just because you're not doing that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye, Guardians.